Supreme Court of India passed a landmark judgment in 1995 saying the airwaves were public property. And at that stage, many of us started discovering what the potential of community radio in India in terms of a media which was owned by the community, by less privileged communities. This is what we had been talking about on a range of other media, be it print, be it video, but radio made huge sense in a country particularly like India, where there are huge challenges of an urban-rural divides between rich and poor, a lot of cultural diversity. So a medium which relies on the spoken word, it's easy, it's accessible, it doesn't depend on power breakdowns, made huge sense. I was involved in the late 80s with a group, an NGO called Media Center, where we looked at how we could use audio to promote development issues which were community-based. This was a small media center supported by the Jesuits in Bangalore. But many years later, I got involved in a community-based media production house called Voices, and we supported setting up community media projects. Between 2000 and 2006, we managed to set up about 3, 2 of whom have already got our community radio stations in their own right, because simultaneously we were also working to change the legislation in India. And in 2006, the government came up with guidelines which enabled grassroots NGOs to be eligible to apply for a community radio license of their own. Meanwhile, we had started our flagship project called Nammadhwani, which is in a village about 100 kilometers from Bangalore, about 2 hours. It's in the village of Budhikote called Nammadhwani. Nammadhwani is, in Kannada, means our voice. And it's now a radio station on the border of 3 villages, on the border of 3 states, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, and Tamil Nadu. And the people therefore speak a very different kind of Kannada. So having a radio station of their own is important because it gives them an identity of their own. It gives them a language of their own. Very much, very much. And in fact, what we did over there was thanks to support from groups like UNESCO, who supported us with infrastructure, is we worked very closely using the technology of cable, but the principles of community radio to set up a cable radio station, what we called a cable radio station, which was functional long before the guidelines came into place. So by the time we applied, Nammadhwani was already functioning. The rhythm of a community radio station had already established itself. Like that, I was also involved with a project called Kalanjiam Radio. Voices helped this group, which was set up a radio station in Nagapatnam, which is in an area which was affected by the tsunami. We have at the moment one community radio station which owes its origins, which was started because the tsunami acted as a trigger, and that is Radio Kalanjiam, for which I said Voices provided technical support. But Radio Kalanjiam, and the representative is over here right now, Mr. Krishnamurthy, he is, so we can speak to him also. But it doesn't only deal with disaster, it deals with other issues in the region, in the area, issues related to community life on a day-to-day basis. There is food security issues, there are caste issues, there are Dalit issues, which the radio station is also dealing with. So in terms of the guidelines, the government of India, we are fairly clear on who can apply for community radio. Firstly, you have to be an NGO with proven credentials in community media, having been registered for at least 3 years. And the whole idea of community radio in India is we're looking at low power transmission. So you're looking at communities which are of geographical interest, not special interest groups. So even if it is a community radio station concerned with disaster management, that's not the only thing they do. They're looking at, it's like an FM radio station which is owned and managed by the community, working for a radius of 10 to 15 kilometers. Yeah? But within that, you have some community radio stations. Within these geographic-based communities, you have radio stations who are also doing very interesting work in, say, gender, food security, people with disabilities, disaster management, and so on and so forth. We've had, women who were widows, who were ostracized by the community, but they've come and worked in the community radio station, and they have gained strength, and they have become socially empowered as a result. So that is the transformative quality also of community radio, which is very important in changing lives. But there isn't only internet. And that's the problem. And even when there is internet, it depends on where you are. How many of us have access to internet all the time? The internet is changing lives, and I think we have to be open to it, but we also have to look at it from the community point of view. It's not just about technology. Technology, yes, but it's about also a process. And that's what I've learned is the most important part of community radio. Because the technology is an instrument at best, in which case, how will the internet radio be different from mainstream internet radio? And that is not the issue. The issue is it's community media, it's community radio, which is the community driving technology, which is very important. I come from a part of the world where Bangalore may have access to the internet, and I'm not saying we don't use the internet, it's how we use the internet that's important, but there are spaces where you still don't have access to the internet. What do you do there? You have to then rely and work with whatever media material is available, be it the loudspeaker, be it a tuk-tuk as in Sri Lanka, which is the mobile radio used there, or Doko radio in Nepal. It's how you use the media that's important. So I do not think one technology can be applicable for something to explain a phenomenon like community radio. Our friends, our AMARC colleagues from Japan, from Indonesia, have had first-hand experience in grappling with the tsunami, and they have built disaster information systems which are community-based, using community radio at the center to actually look at how disaster mitigation can be achieved. And these experiences have already been shared first through regional training workshops within Asia Pacific. For instance, in about 3 years ago, or 2 years ago, in Yogyakarta, Ford Foundation supported us to have a disaster management workshop for community-based radio stations across the region, for station managers, on how they could use the radio station to look at issues related to disaster preparedness and disaster mitigation. Now, this experience has been shared between the regions and now is useful at a cross-regional level. So therefore, because of the fact that our community media friends in Indonesia have had to grapple with tsunami on a very fairly regular basis, they are more conversant with dealing with this. Likewise with Japan, and Japan has provided this expertise to Indonesia. So when the challenge of Haiti happened, it almost was like a next step to try and see how we can share. Absolutely. And this again is, I think, an important plus point of AMARC, strengthened by what was put in place in the last 4 years, the harmonization process, which has actually brought the regions closer together and enabled cross-regional collaborations. And we need to have more of that.